Starting out with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Here's the player's handbook. Really all it takes to run it is the player's handbook and the monster manual. And inside we've got rules for making a character. It's got a step-by-step like walk-through type where they make a character to sort of show you how that works before going into all the different races and classes that you can choose. And then in the back there's spells, and there's a couple stat blocks for common enemies such as and creatures such as like bears and wolves and stuff. But 5th edition is definitely, and Dungeons and Dragons in general, is definitely focused on the fighting. You've got this whole page of weapons, and all of the class features are fighting focused. There's only one there's one class that actually doesn't expect you to fight, like in one of the expansion books, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, there's a paladin class that you're meant to be a sort of pacifist who doesn't voluntarily get into fights, and so you get a bunch of bonuses to mostly just buff your enemy or buff your allies and buff yourself so that you don't get hurt, but you're not really meant to be attacking. But a lot of this book is focused on combat. There are plenty of spells that are more utility. Stuff like turning yourself invisible or letting you fly or whatever. Or letting you find like the abilities of a magic item. But for a good majority of these classes, it's focused on how good you are when it comes to swords and magic. The other thing, there's also a focus from a DM standpoint. There's a lot of focus on preparation. You're very much meant to have a location with people and quests and stuff that your players will go to, and it's very much the players go and try and find quests that you've made. So you send them to a cave to fight bandits or whatever, but it's a lot of tends to be a lot of reacting. It tends to be they don't really find out about the bad guys until somebody tells them about them, and they don't take action really unless they've got or it's not expected that they take action unless they've got any sort of magical things that or weaknesses for the monsters, for the big villains. Maybe they need a certain sword to kill them, but it's very much sort of the just fighting goblins, and like you can pull a very you can pull successful intrigue campaigns where there's a lot of time spent in cities talking to nobility or looking around for like information on like maybe there's a murder mystery or something going on, diplomacy and stuff. But if in that area, a lot of the well, each class has good roleplay capabilities, such as like clerics and paladins having their gods and oaths that they follow, and druids being more attuned to nature. It's not. It might not really come out during a diplomacy mission. The players aren't really thinking about having to using their own characters to and their own characters' personalities and backstories when it comes to talking with other people. It typically devolves into just sending in whoever has the highest charisma to talk to the noble, even if you gathered a bit of intel on him and learned that he enjoys sword fighting. So it might be like, oh, the fighter might have better success sort of getting him friendly with us by talking about sword fighting and maybe sharing techniques or whatever. There just isn't a lot of that. Or it's just not explicitly stated. It's kind of up to DMs and players to determine on their own. Monster of the Week is a mystery game. It focuses more on the mystery, sort of figuring out what you're dealing with and how you can stop it. Much in the same vein as shows such as Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so the focus is on the gathering information, looking around, casing witnesses, seeing what evidence you can find as to what you're dealing with, and then finally going to actually kill or stop whatever monster is going down in the town that you're in. I have also the expansion book, the Tome of Mysteries. Includes a couple other playbooks, as well as rules for phenomena mysteries, as well as a whole bunch of pre-made mysteries for you to play. And then, but in the base game, Monster of the Week book, you get all the rules for actually playing the game, as well as a fairly decent example of what a game might look like, where it goes through a very script-like to show you how you might go about playing the game, as well as really good rules for the DM about how you should use your keeper moves, and rules for creating custom monsters for once you've exhausted the pre-made stuff, or if you don't want to do any of the pre-made stuff. Skill check wise, it's got pass fail skill checks, but the failures really just mean that the DM or that the GM gets to make something else happen. So it gives examples of like, oh, if you fail when you're gathering information or when you're questioning witnesses, maybe you don't get anything too useful out of them. You might still get some stuff that you could use, but your questioning starts attracting attention to yourself, and you might have the monster speeding up his plans or sending minions after you to slow you down while they continue their plan. And really, unless you get like perfect rolls, it's not. It's always varying degrees of success. So like it's always a yes but. So if they're like, I'm gonna run through I'm gonna look for a way out of this burning building, they could look, and maybe you find a way out, but you'll have to jump out of the window and take a bit of harm. And the characters are very much not as immortal as they are in something like Dungeons and Dragons. They have very little damage that they can take without being killed, which goes along with its non-combat focus, where you're basically just ordinary people going around and solving mysteries. And it just so happens that you're fighting giant aboleths. It's set up in sort of one-shot styles. It's supposed to be like a classic serialized Saturday morning television show. It has guidelines for creating plot arcs, where maybe you've got a plot arc involving the initiates organization that they're a part of, or you've got a plot where all the monsters that they're fighting, or most of them, are secretly the minions of this even larger monster, of this like vampire lord that's controlling the area or something like that. The characters are pretty equally powered. There's sub-specialization. There's 5 stats, and all the rolls are just using that stat. Like there's not much when you investigate, you're just rolling your intelligence stat. And then but each different class has some special moves that they get to pick from. And so you could say there's one where it's like, oh, you can do when you do something, when you act under pressure, you can roll a different stat. So it might change it to the stat that's more useful for your class, that your class gets more stats in. Or it might be something like, oh, you get experience when you do this thing. So it's like, so that they could grow quite quickly. So XP is also gained from playing into your character's personality, and so like something like if you have a character and you've decided, all right, I want my character. She's going to be afraid of werewolves because maybe she was attacked by a werewolf when she was young. So if you created that character and your keeper sent you out to fight werewolves, you might earn experience if you played up being terrified and like not rather to run away than to fight, or if your character maybe grew up with a like within a certain area or whatever, and they maybe had befriended some kind of monster in their youth, and you decided that alongside the keeper, then you might get XP for hesitating to attack that monster. Or if you had a character, there's a character, the Wronged is the archetype there. You'd have it where you get to set that, you've basically their whole thing is going for revenge against a certain type of monster. So you could say, a ghost tormented my family for however many years before we were able to deal with it, or maybe it killed all your family or something. So then you get bonus like experience or whatever when you fight a ghost as retribution for what a ghost had done to your family. Yeah. Moving on, Blades in the Dark is a crime gang. You play as you and your friends. You're forming a gang, a crew is what they're called, and you get to choose what kind of crew you are. So it's very much. So like you could be smugglers or assassins or thieves, and then you get to choose what type of archetype you are. This is like a ghost magic user, or you could be the planner, or the infiltrator, and you decide what characters and what type of jobs you want to go on. So it's a very sandbox. It's a very sandbox experience. So the GM does not actually make that many decisions as far as what you're doing. Whereas something like Dungeons and Dragons or Monster of the Week, the DM has to create, today we're gonna be fighting goblins in the camp or whatever. Like, here's a town, here's a couple quests, here's some goblins to fight. Or okay, you go into town, I know there's like a zombie infestation. You gotta find the source of all these zombies that are appearing, fight the necromancer that's growing them. This is very much we're playing as smugglers. So so that the GM has to figure out, okay, well, they're smugglers, what kind of jobs will they be doing? Let's have them trying to get a noble out of a party without, there's another gang trying to assassinate him. and so then you get stuff. So you could change it up more than just the classic smuggler of, oh, we're smuggling contraband into the city. You could be like, okay, we've got to sort of covertly get this person out of by their own free will, get them out of this party and back to their fortified house in order without attracting this other crew that's trying to kill them. But it's very much player driven, so you could drop in hints like they got a letter in their, or a letter from a mail courier that said, oh, we've got I would like your services, and connect them to a client that way. Or they could just be like, all right, we're thieves. Is there any like thievy type stuff to do? Is there anything that we could take? Like anything really cool that we could try and get out of score? Or be like, oh, there's like a big university in this city. Let's just like steal whatever we can from their archives. So they can go on their own initiative. Like if they want to, you just sort of introduce stuff to them, and then they're like, all right, we want to take down this other gang that's been somewhat getting in our way, but mostly, or like it's another gang, because part of the game is that you're in this city, but you're sort of locked in there because outside of the walls is just this lawless death land. So the city everywhere is owned by someone. So you might be tired of paying up to the big gang in the area that you're working in. So the group might decide, yeah, let's just let's fight them. Let's take over. And so there's a lot less planning. It's a lot more in the moment for the DM as well as the players. It focuses on the non-combat. Most of the groups, classes and crews, besides like the mercenaries and assassins, are focused on not fighting people, and really all the combat is just eventuality. Like, oh, we got seen by some of the guards going out, but you can avoid combat. You could say, convince the guards, you didn't see anything. You could pay them off. You could bribe them. There's a lot of ways to do it where you don't end up killing anybody at all, which is good because that reduce killing people during a score will raise your heat level, which is the amount of attention your gang is getting, and building up heat and wanted levels is not the greatest as far as keeping all of your members out of prison it goes. The skill checks are always move the story forward. So, although poor rolls do, you do sometimes fail to do what you were wanting to do. But it might be that you're trying to break into this warded window. It's got like an arcade ward on it, as well as normal mundane locks and alarms attached to it or whatever. So you've got to get into the window in order to sneak into this house to steal something. But you roll a 2, and that's a fail. So you might break into the window. You get into the window, but you might not have. You didn't completely deactivate the wards, so you might not even know that there were still wards active, and it might be a secret kept by the DM that there's a new countdown going for when reinforcements show up. But it does give consequences, and even basically anything less than a perfect roll, or anything less than a 6. So you roll multiple d6, but anything less than a 6 will have a consequence. And anything less than a 3 will have a bigger consequence. So, but you can use each character gets stress points, and that's their main sort of mana limited resource for each score. And so they could use that. Characters can use stress to resist consequences, among other things. So they change it so that instead of alerting all the guards, it just doesn't. They manage to stop the alarm before it happens and move on with the heist. The book comes with this beautiful location of Duskval, filled with locations and people that you can interact with. Lore about the city and about the setting. There's a lot in this book. Let's see. Characters earn XP. It's very narrative driven, XP wise. So they get experience when they address a challenge as their class. So the sneaky spy will get XP when they address a challenge with stealth. So stay out of sight. Whereas the brute will get XP when they solve a challenge with violence. As well, they get to pick special abilities when they level up that further boost their characters, and the crew also levels up and gets similar abilities. So they might end up being able to have better engagement roll, which is your starting roll to see how well the initial start of the score went off. They might have something where their murders don't attract notice from the authorities, as long as nobody sees them do it, of course. But you can upgrade your crew to have more specialization. But yeah, it's very improvisation, and you're not meant to plan much if anything.